2 years after the marriage alliance, the princess was sent back, and my husband couldn't wait to give me a divorce letter. On the day I left, he stood by with his hands behind his back, quietly watching me pack my belongings. Suddenly, he said, "You are virtuous and gentle. This divorce letter will not hinder your marriage prospects. When you return from your travels, I will naturally arrange a good match for you." I said, "All right." His hand stiffened as I took the divorce letter and tucked it into my bosom. In the many deep nights that followed, he would often wake from his dreams in alarm, staring at my portrait, murmuring, "Aruo, when will you return?" On the day I left, Bai-hung stood by with his hands behind his back, watching me fold the few pieces of clothing one by one, and place them into the bundle I had when I first arrived. He walked over and calmly said, "There's no need to rush. The wedding procession won't enter the city for a few more days." I wrapped a well-used writing brush in a handkerchief before looking up at him. "Today is an auspicious day for travel. I only have these few belongings, it won't take days to pack." Too calm, too smooth. Compared to those officials who divorce their wives and take concubines, the Bai family only needed a single word and a letter of divorce to drive away a blameless first wife. I carefully wiped the few old books I usually use and stacked them neatly in a corner of the bundle. Thinking about what else I might have missed, I didn't notice the man beside me holding the 2 maids' contracts of servitude in his hand. After what seemed like a long hesitation, he finally stepped forward and handed them to me. "Take the 2 maids with you on the road. They are both people you are accustomed to." I understood his meaning, but I just smiled and politely declined. "They might not fare better following me than staying in the estate. Let them remain here." He then asked, "Where are you planning to go?" My voice remained calm. "Perhaps I'll return to my hometown first." He let out an "oh" and said, "That place is barren and harsh. After paying respects at your parents' graves, leave immediately and find another place to live. As husband and wife, if you ever return to the capital, go find Steward Lee in the city. He will help you." I nodded and said, "All right," but I thought to myself, I probably won't be returning to the capital again. These favors are generally not to be enjoyed. The world is ever changing, with gains and losses. If it weren't for that mix-up back then, perhaps I would have long settled in that remote rural area. There's nothing to regret. Over the years, I used the money earned from my embroidery to support Bai-hung's education and manage various relationships. Now, the skill of embroidery has become the foundation of my livelihood. Whether it's intricate stitching techniques or delicate color combinations, I have mastered them all by heart. With this excellent embroidery skill, I can go anywhere without fear of starving. But I think, even if one day my vision blurs and I can no longer hold a needle, I will not return to the capital. Thinking this, I tightened the bundle's strap, slung it over my shoulder, and said to him, "I'm leaving." I lifted my foot to step over the threshold. "Wait, the 100 years of harmony embroidery made with gold and silver threads that Mother gave you, the pair of mandarin duck ornaments from our wedding, with your name engraved on the base, you don't want these anymore." I suddenly realized, "You handle it for me." He was taken aback, noticing that I seemed to have no attachment to this place. He scoffed, not sounding happy at all. "How do you expect me to handle it? Selling it or giving it away isn't appropriate, and leaving it here would only add to her troubles if she sees it. My chest feels a bit tight." "Then throw it away, too." Bai-hung ultimately had nothing more to say and followed me out the door. The distance from the inner courtyard's corridor to the main gate felt as long as a lifetime. I accompanied Bai-hung as he rose from a penniless, impoverished scholar to a position in the imperial court. Every matter in the household, no matter how small, is handled with great care, respectful to superiors, kind and gentle to subordinates. My mother-in-law treats me as if I were her own daughter, showering me with affection. If she hadn't passed away 2 years ago, she would have shielded me from this situation today and sent Bai-hung to kneel in the ancestral hall as punishment. I miss her a little. I miss the red date and lotus seed soup she made for me. I miss her telling me not to focus too much on needlework, as it might strain my eyes. I miss how she stood up for me when others said I hadn't borne any children after several years of marriage. Despite her illness, she stood up to defend her. How my daughter-in-law is none of your business to gossip about here. Having children is a matter between the couple themselves. Everyone has their own destiny. What are you trying to achieve by spreading such rumors? Before she left, she whispered in Bai Heng's ear, telling him to treat me well. Unfortunately, she didn't get her wish. The servants have always held me in high regard. Now that I am about to leave the estate, they gather in the courtyard, hesitating over whether they should come forward to bid farewell. I calmly told them to go about their duties. Bai Heng is a stickler for rules, and I do not wish for them to be punished at the last moment, after I leave. That princess who was neglected by the Northern Qi crown prince for 2 years and then sent back will become the matriarch of the Bai family. What they need to do is to win her favor, so that everything in the Bai family can go smoothly, compared to an ordinary commoner like me. Liu Yang, with her conferred princess title, still carries an air of nobility even if it has been tarnished. As the head of the family, Bai Heng needs a virtuous partner who can bring honor and glory to the Bai family. It seems I am no match for Liu Yang. Being replaced was within expectations. However, the situation turned out to be far more absurd than I had imagined. Even if it wasn't Liu Yang's fault, being inexplicably divorced after 2 years in Northern Qi had already tarnished her reputation. What a woman seeks in her life is nothing but a stable home and a rightful status. As soon as the news reached the capital, Bai Heng lost all appetite for food and drink. I could tell at a glance that he had developed a soft spot for her. He did not say it explicitly. I had written that letter of divorce early on and hidden it in a secret compartment of the desk drawer. I came across it unintentionally while helping him organize his books. After silently putting it back in its place, I pretended nothing had happened and continued with my work. At that moment, I went over every detail of our journey together in my mind. It seems there is no evidence that Bai Heng doesn't love me. He is a considerate husband, who quietly prepares the pearl and jade jewelry I've long desired for my birthday. And also takes care of me tirelessly when I'm unwell. Whenever you come across something new and interesting, you always think of buying it for me right away, hoping to bring a smile to my face. But if this is love, then why was I out of the picture as soon as she returned, even before she set foot in the capital? 3. What are you thinking about? A large hand waved in front of me. If you don't want to, I was just thinking that autumn is almost here, and with your weak spleen and stomach, you might easily get a stomachache if you're not careful. I think I forgot to tell the kitchen staff to prepare more warm, stomach-soothing soup for you. Please make sure to remind them. Actually, everything has already been arranged. Perhaps I just wanted to leave with a clear conscience. So I casually mentioned it as if making small talk. Bai Heng paused for a moment, then instinctively took a small step forward. Just as I was about to say something, the servant drove the carriage up to me. Master, madam, gently setting down the horsewhip in his hand, he jumped down and bowed deeply to me in a proper manner. Madam, allow me to escort you to the ferry. I thought it was Bai Heng who arranged it. I was about to say it wasn't necessary, but he straightened his clothes and, with a hint of nervousness, pleaded with Bai Heng. Sir, I heard that madam is about to travel, and my heart has been itching like a cat's scratch, constantly thinking about seeing her off. I took care of all the urgent tasks that could be done in advance early in the morning, without the slightest delay. Bai Heng was momentarily stunned. It seemed he felt he had been too impetuous, failing to arrange even these matters properly. He then waved his hand and gave a tacit hum of approval. Thus, I had no reason to refuse, for, as I boarded the carriage, Bai Heng came over to support me. Just like on previous outings, he firmly held my forearm. His grip was still just right. Carrying a reassuring warmth, the same action inexplicably carried a hint of bitterness. It felt as though everything had changed, yet it also seemed as if nothing had changed at all. Although my mind involuntarily went blank, I could still be certain, once I left, I would never see him again. I suddenly remembered the year Bai Heng passed the imperial examination and became a scholar. I was still a young girl with yellow hair, helping my parents sell tofu by the street. On the day the results were announced, the street was bustling with excitement, and everyone crowded around the newly appointed scholars. Curious, I stood on my tiptoes to catch a glimpse. In the exchange of glances, our eyes met with Bai Heng's spirited and confident gaze. He was dressed in a moon-white robe, his eyes and brows carrying a smile. After a brief moment of eye contact, I was the first to shyly lower my head. I never dared to imagine having any connection with him, however. Because of a marriage alliance, Bai Heng came looking for me. It wasn't until many years later that I understood why he had that brief moment of distraction when he saw me, because I resembled the princess of the current dynasty, with the great Zhao's stability at risk. The princess had to be prepared from birth to travel far away and marry into a foreign land. However, Bai Heng's childhood sweetheart Liu Yang, who bore a resemblance to the princess, was chosen at the age of 13 to serve as the princess's double. The empress sent people to teach her etiquette and manners, all in preparation for her to substitute for the princess in a political marriage. Before everything was finalized, Bai Heng still held on to a glimmer of hope, hoping the emperor would not take the path of marriage alliance. Then Liu Yang could also marry normally. After waiting for many years, Bai Heng could no longer accept any unexpected changes. After meeting me, she began to entertain the idea of having me take her place. At that time, he did not state his purpose. He would always buy all the leftover tofu from the tofu store whenever he passed by. When my father was beaten to death by a local bully, he helped me draft a petition and accompanied me, running back and forth between the court and the government office time and again. When my mother passed away from longing-induced illness, he borrowed money from everywhere to help me arrange the funeral. I will bring my parents' remains back to our hometown, so they can return to their roots. He would take me back and teach me to read and write. Even though life was already difficult and the funds needed for the imperial exams were still uncertain, in order to purchase writing materials and pay for tuition, he ran around borrowing money from relatives and friends, already overwhelmed with anxiety. Yet, I still spent all my savings to hire an old nanny who had served in the palace to teach me etiquette and manners. In those difficult and dark days, he was the only light in my life. It was no surprise that I fell for him, but later, he still received the imperial decree to go to northern Qi for a political marriage. Finally, the decency between us was torn apart, begging me to replace Liu Yang. He said everything had been taken care of, all I had to do was agree to it. He didn't know what a heart-wrenching pain this was. To repay his kindness, I agreed with tears in my eyes. He might have felt guilty. His eyes darted around, not daring to meet mine. In the women's quarters study, the carved window lattice let in scattered rays of sunlight. The instructing matron scrutinized the two of us repeatedly. Her gaze lingered a bit longer on Liu Yang's graceful figure and charming, smiling face. Then she nodded slightly, when she looked at my bitter melon-like expression. She shook her head, in a voice neither too loud nor too soft. She said, "Both will do." He pointed at me again. "You, even more so. 5, if I can stand here." Naturally I am. I lowered my eyes without speaking. Liu Yang suddenly stepped forward and whispered a few words in the matron's ear. In the end, Liu Yang was still chosen. I went through the motions but failed to repay Bai Heng's kindness. Upon realizing that I was not the one being taken into the palace, Bai Heng choked up for a moment. I forced a smile and said, "I'm sorry, I couldn't replace Liu Yang." He sighed. "It's all right, you've done your best." I could see the disappointment in his eyes, as if all expectations had been washed away by the torrent of fate. After Liu Yang entered the palace, she was granted the title of Junzhu. Bai Heng was completely disheartened and spent his days lingering in taverns. "I tried every possible way to meet Liu Yang once," I said. "The crown prince of northern Qi is still a hostage in the southern kingdom, and you won't be leaving for northern Qi for another 2 years. During this time, could you make arrangements for me to take your place in the marriage alliance?" I didn't say that Bai Heng needed her. She slapped me hard across the face. "You're just jealous of my title as the princess, aren't you? Get out of here. Don't let me see your face again. You bring bad luck." Given the disparity in our statuses, I dared not act out of line. I could only quietly stay by Bai Heng's side, watching him drown himself in alcohol every day. I let him vent his frustrations. Only after he had passed out in a corner of the tavern did I struggle to carry him on my frail back, inching my way home step by step. When he became a bit more sober, I would gently encourage him to pull himself together. He yelled at me to get lost. I stopped speaking. I sat quietly under the candlelight doing needlework. Every stitch was filled with my longing for him. It was to repay his kindness, and also because I truly liked him. But now, I can no longer remember how deeply I loved. I just feel that he's just so. Let's go. I instructed the young driver. Wait a moment. Bai-hung raised her hand as if to grasp something, then froze mid-air. When she spoke, her words came out somewhat awkwardly. She sent a letter earlier, saying she doesn't want to see you. If you've returned to the capital, you can go to Butler Lee's place instead. Don't show up at her door unannounced. A chill ran through my heart, and I took a quiet, steadying breath, nodding in agreement. The carriage finally departed. The servant glanced back a few times, told me the master was still standing in place. I don't feel much like talking, so I just said, watch the road. As the carriage jostled, my mind drifted back to what happened 2 hours ago. Originally, I wasn't in a hurry to leave. A few of Bai-hung's former classmates came to the mansion as guests. I was just about to instruct the kitchen to prepare some fine tea and snacks to entertain them properly, but I overheard their conversation at the door. An older brother, smiling, started the conversation. Brother, I know you went to great lengths for Liu Yang back in the day, but how could you even be willing to abandon your wife of so many years? Who would have thought the Northern Qi Crown Prince would send her back at this time? Aheng won't stand by and let Liu Yang be subjected to gossip, but over the past few years, I've seen them grow more and more affectionate as a couple. I thought Aheng had already forgotten about her. After a while, someone made a suggestion. Brother Heng, why not think it over again? Having both a wife and a concubine, isn't that even better than being an immortal? Bai-hung remained silent for a long while before softly replying, you don't understand. If Yanga's family hadn't encountered misfortune, she would have been the legitimate daughter of a noble family. How could I possibly take her as a concubine? I was taken aback and accidentally kicked a flower pot at my feet, making a faint sound. Bai-hung glanced outside. I quickly dodged to the side and hid. The conversation inside soon resumed. Since I've decided to protect her, I cannot let her suffer the slightest grievance. As for Aruo, she would certainly not wish to be demoted from wife to concubine. That would be an insult to her. Someone sighed, and the room fell into a dead silence. I paused, inwardly musing. But you never asked me if I could adapt to the outside world after leaving this familiar mansion and abandoning everything I had built over the years. Never asked me how I, all alone, would face the strange looks from others. You never even asked me how the wound of a torn heart could heal. You just took it for granted that I would understand and accept. I smiled self-mockingly and was about to leave. The person inside then said, since you've made your decision, you must act quickly. Liu Yang is a woman of spirit. If your sister-in-law cries and makes a scene, she will definitely refuse to marry you. I will speak with her. The man's voice carried an undeniable certainty. In that instant, I felt that all the affection we had shared in the past had become a joke. After the guest left, he came to find me. Seeing me packing my bags, his furrowed brow visibly relaxed. Despite my efforts to ignore it, my numb heart began to ache. Finally, I finished packing my luggage and managed to pull myself together. He suddenly said there was no need to rush. It turns out men are even more contradictory than women. What they say they want is actually what they don't want. And what they say they don't want is actually what they do want. And yet, I understood. The servant escorted me to the ferry, and I had him drive the carriage back, untie the harness, and leave me a horse. I did not return to my hometown. I chose the direction toward the frontier. I cracked the whip against the horse's back. Giddy up. In the neighing of the horse, I glanced back at the gradually fading outline of the capital. Bai-hung. The bonds of the past are like the willow branches of the capital and the wind-blown sands beyond the frontier. From now on, they have nothing to do with each other. You guard your prosperous old dreams, and I embark on my solitary journey through the vast desert. Let's part ways here, with no debts between us. Female lead's perspective. End. 7. Master, you've been standing for a long time. Please come inside to shelter from the wind. Butler Lee's soft reminder went unheard by Bai-hung. It wasn't until the carriage that had disappeared from sight turned back that a trace of relaxation finally surfaced between his brows. Careless woman, she must have forgotten something again. Butler, have the cook prepare some delicious food. She likes water chestnut cakes, make plenty, since she's turned back. There's no need for her to leave today, tomorrow will be soon enough. Butler Lee seemed to want to say something, but in the end, it turned into an almost imperceptible soft sigh. The servant who had escorted Hairuo to the ferry got down from the carriage. He hurried over and said, "Master, I have already escorted Miss Hai to the ferry. I will now move the carriage to the side gate on the west." Bai Heng's body stiffened slightly as he glanced toward the carriage. "Oh, so she didn't come back. Did she leave any message?" The servant paused in his steps, a hint of hesitation on his face. He mumbled as he spoke, "Master, Miss Hai. She didn't say much along the way, before leaving. She only told me to drive carefully on the way back." With that, the servant quickly lowered his head, not daring to look at Bai Heng's slightly pale face. Bai Heng never expected that she would leave so resolutely. She had instructed the servants to handle every matter in advance, yet she left him without a single word. He wanted to ask more, but suddenly felt it was unnecessary. He waved his hand, signaling the servant to step back. Steward Lee was about to say something when someone suddenly arrived from the palace to deliver a message. It was said that Bai Heng was to host a welcoming banquet for Princess Lu Yang 3 days later. Bai Heng was slightly taken aback. Upon learning that Lu Yang was returning to the country, he made all the necessary arrangements, fully intending to be the official in charge of welcoming her. Now that he had gotten his wish, there was no imagined joy. Instead, it felt as if all his energy and spirit had been drained away. Even forcing a faint smile felt somewhat strained, but at least, after that momentary daze, his mood had settled a little. He straightened his clothes and instructed Butler Lee, "Go and tidy up the east wing, have it thoroughly cleaned and arranged, then replace all the bedding and curtains with brand new ones. Every item must be of the finest quality." Butler Lee was taken aback. "But, Miss Hai has only just left." A flicker of impatience crossed Bai Heng's face. "No more talk, just do as I say. The princess is of noble status. The east wing is close to the main hall, making it convenient for hosting guests. We must not be discourteous." Although he said so, he felt inexplicably uneasy inside, yet on the surface, he maintained a strictly businesslike demeanor. Steward Lee responded with a yes, then turned to make the arrangements. Bai Heng subconsciously glanced once more in the direction the carriage had gone, as if confirming that no one would return, before finally stepping inside. Out of habit, Bai Heng went to the study first. As soon as he pushed the door open, the familiar scent of embroidered flowers greeted him. "Aruo, you're at it again." He stopped mid-sentence, remembering that the woman who always sat quietly embroidering in the corner of the study, adding a touch of elegance to his surroundings, was already gone. 8. My eyes involuntarily searched for the spot where she usually sat, empty. Only that old wooden chair remained. After a long while, he finally came to his senses and slowly made his way to the desk. He reached out to pick up a pen and paper, intending to write a letter to his superior to request a day off and arrange the various preparations for the welcoming banquet for the princess. A book beside his hand fell to the ground with a thud, as he bent down to pick it up. He noticed a yellowed sheet of rice paper slip out from the book. At a glance, it turned out to be the masterpiece she had left behind when she first learned to write his name. On the paper was only the character, written heavily in ink, crooked and uneven. In the past, she had practiced writing this character repeatedly by candlelight to perfect it. After life got better, she couldn't bear to throw away these old papers filled with his name. Each piece was carefully wrapped in silk and stored in a carved sandalwood box, which she would take out and look through in her spare time, as if through those words, she could see the moments they had shared. How foolish. But how did this one end up here? Bai Heng opened the book and realized it was the one he had given her, titled Brocade Collection *. She had mentioned not long ago that she had read the chapter Entangled Feelings Are Hard to Sever and eagerly discussed the deeper meanings of the verses with him. So, she had been using this practice sheet as a bookmark. Bai Heng's thoughts drifted far away. For a moment, he even forgot what he had originally intended to do. It wasn't until Steward Lee came to report, "The East Wing has been tidied up. We're unsure how to handle Miss Hai's embroidery pieces that she didn't have time to take with her." as well as the items she used daily. We await your instructions, sir. Upon hearing this, Bai Heng's fingers, which had been stroking the pages, paused slightly. After a long silence, he finally spoke. First, store them in the warehouse. Be careful not to damage them. Yes, Steward Lee responded, but did not leave immediately. Hesitating for a moment, he then said softly, "But the warehouse is damp and dark. If those items are stored for too long, I'm afraid they might. Perhaps we should clear out the unused room in the west wing. That room faces the sun and is usually quite dry and well ventilated. Storing those items there would help preserve them better." Bai Heng frowned. She is my wife. How can her belongings be so carelessly placed in the west wing? Although the west wing is unused, according to the rules of this household, it is not considered the main residence. His voice carried an inexplicable stubbornness, as if placing her things in the wrong location would somehow betray her once again. Steward Lee looked troubled. "Master, with so many people and matters at hand, the east wing is close to the main hall and sees constant traffic. It's really inconvenient to set aside a room specifically for storing these." For a moment, Bai Heng couldn't think of a proper solution either. Hairuo had always managed the household, and she could always arrange everything properly. These matters wouldn't be brought to him. But now that she was gone, even just dealing with her belongings made Bai Heng feel overwhelmed. Steward Lee stood quietly by, waiting for Bai Heng to make a decision. "Let's just put it in the warehouse for now, and we'll deal with it another day." Upon hearing this, Steward Lee nodded and replied, "Yes, I will arrange it right away." Bai Heng leaned back in his chair and let out a long sigh. He carefully picked up the piece of paper with the character Heng written on it, intending to place it back into the carved sandalwood box that held her calligraphy treasures. Suddenly, he let out a self-mocking laugh. She usually treasures that box so much. If she were leaving, she would definitely take it with her. Thinking this, he slipped the paper back into the brocade collection and set the book aside. 9. Mealtime. Bai Heng had just sat down at the dining table. The maid came forward to serve the meal. However, the sweet and sour mandarin fish, his usual favorite, was not placed in front of him. In the past, when Hairuo was around, she would always carefully remind the maids about these trivial matters. The placement of each dish was clearly and meticulously arranged. This was to ensure that after a busy day, Bai Heng could have a pleasant meal. But now, the maids had lost their guiding force and were in disarray. Bai Heng raised her hand and rubbed her temples, trying to dispel this sudden sense of loss. Suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind, her gentle reminder not to focus solely on official duties and to pay attention to a balanced diet. Her soft voice seemed to linger in his ears, yet the seat across from him was now empty. The maids sensed the tense atmosphere and were too frightened to even breathe loudly. Bai Heng remained silent for a long while before finally waving his hand, his voice filled with exhaustion. "All of you, leave." Before long, my colleague Li Huan arrived with 2 jars of wine. "Brother Bai, the Emperor's intention is quite clear by assigning you to welcome Princess Liu Yang. So, when I got these 2 jars of fine wine today, you were the first person I thought of. We brothers must have a good drink tonight." As he spoke, he found himself a seat and familiarly set out the wine cups on the table. Bai Heng gave a slight tug at the corner of his mouth. "I appreciate your concern, Brother Li." Li Huan patted Bai Heng on the shoulder. "Brother Bai, you're truly fortunate. After all these years, you can reunite with your childhood sweetheart. I thought you might struggle after your first wife passed away. Considering how she took care of every little detail for you all these years without you having to worry about a thing. Take daily meals, for example. She remembered exactly which dishes suited your taste, which seasonal dishes you should eat, and whenever we visited, she even knew what each of us liked to eat. During the holidays, the decorations in your home fully showcase her ingenuity, lively and bustling, yet never lacking in elegance, allowing you to gain plenty of face among your colleagues. I've noticed that when she was by your side, even though you never said it out loud, you must have felt extremely content in your heart. Now that she has suddenly left, how could you not feel unaccustomed to it?" Upon hearing this, Bai Heng's movement to pick up the wine cup paused slightly. The emotion in his eyes vanished in an instant. "Brother Li, what are you saying? How could I?" "Bai Heng, be someone so sentimental and easily troubled by mundane matters. She is thoughtful in everything, and that is because I spent time doting on her, loving her, and nurturing her. From now on, with each of us marrying someone else, I will have a lot less to worry about and can focus entirely on my career." After saying this, he raised his head and downed the wine in his cup in one gulp, but as the wine went down his throat, it left a bitter and sour taste. "It tastes completely different from the usual flavor." Li Huan looked at him and shook his head slightly. Following his words, he said, "Brother Bai, with such great aspirations, it couldn't be better. As for this wine, let's drink freely today and get thoroughly drunk." Bai Heng nodded in agreement, poured himself another cup of wine, and drank it down. The two of them drank one cup after another like this, and their conversation gradually grew livelier. Certain melancholy, as the wine's effects spread, could no longer be suppressed and slowly poured out. Unable to withstand the rising drunkenness and to avoid being impolite, Li Huan hastily bid farewell. The servant helped Bai Heng to the couch to rest. He tossed and turned, unable to fall asleep. The space beside him felt empty, missing the warmth of another person. In the darkness, he reached out to the side, trying to grasp something, but all he caught was the cold air. He opened his eyes, confirmed it wasn't a dream, and laughed. "It's hard to break a habit of so many years all at once. Don't force yourself to adapt immediately." 10. The next day, the hangover headache clung to him like a tightening curse, making him miserable. "Aruo, I have a headache," he murmured groggily, but what he heard was the flustered reply of a servant, "Master, please get up and drink some hangover soup." Hearing this, his hand pressing on his temple paused for a moment. "I almost forgot, she had already left long ago. If she were here, she would never have let him get so drunk yesterday. Even if he occasionally indulged, she could still manage to feed him the hangover soup. If he didn't cooperate, she would simply take a sip of the hangover soup and feed it directly into his mouth, just to ease his discomfort a little." Bai Heng struggled to get up, took the hangover soup from the servant, and drank it all in one go. Before he was fully awake, he heard a commotion outside, saying that Liu Yang and his party had entered the city ahead of schedule. The welcome banquet, originally scheduled to take place 3 days later, still had many details that had not yet been finalized. Bai Heng had no choice but to hurriedly wash up and get dressed, rushing out in a fluster. He was inwardly annoyed at himself for having indulged too much in drink the previous night and causing trouble. As soon as he stepped out of his room, he saw a servant rushing over in a fluster to report, "Master, Princess Luyen and her party have already entered the city and paid their respects to the Emperor and Empress at the palace. They have now arrived at the gate. Steward Li is currently stalling them and sent me in haste to ask for your instructions." Bai Heng suppressed the inner turmoil. "Understood, I'll be right there." In front of the vermilion lacquered gate, a luxurious carriage stood parked, accompanied by 2 male and 2 female attendants. Bai Heng stepped forward to greet them. Bai Heng pays respects to the princess. Liu Yang gently lifted the carriage curtain, her eyes shimmering as she looked at Bai Heng. "I was so eager to see an old friend that I had the team travel through the night without giving prior notice. I've caused you trouble in such a rush, will you blame me?" "Not at all." Bai Heng looked up at her, doing her best to conceal the turmoil in her heart. "It's just that the preparations for the welcoming events in the residence were originally scheduled according to the planned timeline. Now that you've arrived ahead of schedule, many details may inevitably be rushed. I hope you'll be understanding." Liu Yang chuckled softly. "Brother Heng, I was just teasing you. There's no need to be so formal, just call me Yanga." With that, she gracefully stepped forward. "Brother Heng, you've achieved so much now. I knew I wasn't wrong about you." Upon hearing this, Bai Heng forced a faint smile at the corners of his mouth. The call of Brother Heng brought scenes from the past flooding back to mind. If it weren't for the marriage alliance, or perhaps if they had foreseen that the marriage alliance would be rejected, between them, perhaps. Liu Yang approached with a beaming smile. "Brother Heng, today I have already reported to His Majesty, and he has granted me permission to stay here for a long time." Bai Heng instinctively took a step back, avoiding her touch. "The affairs of the estate are complex. Please, Princess, first move to the side chamber to rest and allow Bai Heng to make some arrangements." A flicker of displeasure passed through Lu Yang's eyes but was quickly concealed. She nodded gently. I'll listen to whatever Brother Heng says. He turned sideways to guide Lu Yang along the path, and before they knew it, they had arrived in front of the residence that originally belonged to him and Hai Ruo. The crabapple trees in front of the house were planted by her own hands the year she moved in. Autumn has arrived, and the crabapple leaves have already been tinged with specks of rusty red. The doors and windows of the house are still adorned with the paper cuttings that Hai Ruo meticulously crafted. The patterns are either mandarin ducks in pairs or peonies symbolizing good fortune. Every line reveals the owner's ingenuity. Lu Yang frowned instantly. Why is this room so plain, Brother Heng? As the one managing the household, you know very little about Yang's preferences. She glanced at Bai Heng, her eyes filled with reproach. Butler Li hurriedly explained. Your Highness, the master intended to arrange the best residence for you and instructed me to handle the matter. Madam, Miss Hai prefers simplicity and elegance, so the room was decorated in this manner. I hadn't yet had the chance to have it redecorated before you moved in, Your Highness. I have failed the master's trust. Lu Yang approached and tore down the window decorations. Don't let these childish things appear before me again. And those flowers are no good either, replace them with peonies. Yes. Butler Li immediately began to tidy up in a fluster. Bai Heng felt as if something had tugged at his heart. However, he also knew that out with the old, in with the new. Thinking about it, it doesn't matter anymore. Lu Yang asked, Brother Heng, you wouldn't be reluctant, would you? She wore a half-smile, her gaze carrying a hint of probing. Just do as you wish. Lu Yang's expression finally softened a bit. And she ordered the servants to replace the decorations with the luxurious and dazzling ones brought from the palace. The attendants deftly began to work. Before long, a eunuch arrived in a hurry, holding a bright yellow imperial edict in his hands. By the decree of heaven, the emperor proclaims, Lady Lu Yang, with her heart set on Bai Heng and possessing both talent and virtue, is permitted to reside in the Bai residence. A marriage will be arranged in due time. May the two of you live in harmony and create a beautiful story together. So it is decreed. Bai Heng uttered words of gratitude almost reflexively, but his mind was in complete disarray. 11. The Northern Chi's withdrawal from the marriage alliance this time is said to be due to their discovery that Lu Yang is not a princess. This act of breaking off the engagement undoubtedly dealt a blow to the great Zhao court, causing us to lose face, according to the Northern Chi Emperor's implication. Great Zhao voluntarily abandoned the path to peace through marriage alliance. Between the lines, it's nothing more than looking for an excuse to start a fight. Even if the broken engagement this time wasn't Lu Yang's fault, if the emperor were to vent his anger on her, saying she didn't know how to bewitch the Northern Chi monarch's heart and share the country's burdens, she would still have to suffer the consequences. Originally, I had wanted to ask the princess to help plead for mercy, to restore Lu Yang's commoner status and let her marry him. In order to ensure her safety, everything was going much more smoothly than he had imagined. Lu Yang smiled sweetly and said, Brother Heng, please take good care of me from now on. Bai Heng responded with an agreement. Yet I always feel as if I'm trapped in an absurd dream, unable to wake up no matter how hard I try. Everything around me is exactly what I've longed for. So why does the heart in my chest feel shrouded by a thick haze? Heavy and sinking, unable to find any joy, he thought. Perhaps he was just not accustomed to it yet. Just like back in high school, wasn't it also difficult to get used to the sudden change in status at first? At that time, Hai Ruo, in order to give him a space of tranquility, skillfully navigated the constant stream of people trying to curry favor, quietly shielding him from many troubles. Amidst the gathering of dignitaries in the world of fame and fortune, she never showed any sign of timidity. She always carried herself with grace and dignity, supporting him as he found his footing and integrated into new circles. At this thought, Bai Heng's heart settled into calm. A woman as resilient and studious as Hai Ruo would be welcomed and valued anywhere. The thought that she would one day marry someone and spend the rest of her life with them left him with a sense of loss. But he believed that if that day ever came, he would be the first to bless her, in the deep quiet of the night. Bai Heng lay alone on the couch in the study, his thoughts drifting far away. Lu Yang's soft sobbing suddenly came from outside the door. Brother Heng, woo woo, Yang had a nightmare. There were so many people with blurry faces surrounding me. They were baring their teeth and brandishing their claws. And they kept saying I shouldn't steal someone else's husband. I'm so scared. Bai Heng quickly opened the door. The woman's eyes were red, and she looked at him pitifully. Brother Heng, can you hold me? Only by your side can I feel at ease. With that, she threw herself into Bai Heng's arms. Bai Heng's heart tightened, but the image of Hai Ruo's gentle smile flashed through his mind, and his hand paused in midair. He could only suppress his inner discomfort and said, "Don't be afraid, dreams are not real." Lu Yang persisted, "Really, Brother Heng, will Hai Ruo really not think that I've taken you away from her? How could this be?" Hai Ruo, from beginning to end, never spoke a single ill word about Lu Yang. She just quietly took the divorce letter and walked away without looking back. "I don't care, my heart is still pounding non-stop. Just hold me for a little while, just for a moment." Bai Heng had no choice but to gently hold her shoulders and give a stiff pat. As Lu Yang leaned against his chest, Bai Heng felt that every second was excruciatingly long. When Lu Yang's breathing steadied, as if she had fallen asleep, Bai Heng slowly released his hold, carefully settled her on the bed, and turned to leave the room. 12. The next day when Lu Yang woke up, she found the study's decor too plain and ordered the removal of all the curtains and ornaments that Hai Ruo had carefully selected. That was the place where Bai Heng spent most of his time. Knowing his preference for tranquility and elegance, Hai Ruo had put a great deal of thought into decorating it. The pale blue curtains gently hang down, perfectly blocking the sunlight while adding a touch of tranquility. Every decorative piece on the table was carefully selected by her, one by one. There is also that small white jade piccio, said to have the power to protect the home and bring blessings. Hai Ruo deliberately placed it in a prominent spot, hoping it would safeguard Bai Heng's smooth career path. Lu Yang felt that these were too petty and couldn't match Bai Heng's current status. This study shouldn't be so plain and simple. Brother Heng spends all day here handling official business. It must feel so stifling to look at. As soon as Bai Heng stepped into the study, he saw this chaotic scene. He wanted to stop it, but he swallowed his words forcefully. He knew that life shouldn't remain unchanged, and neither should people. Brother Heng, you're here. Bai Heng watched as those familiar objects were roughly carried away, feeling as if a cold wind had swept through his heart. An indescribable sense of emptiness washed over him. Brother Heng, look, with just a little tidying up, doesn't it look completely different now? You'll definitely feel more comfortable working here from now on. Bai Heng nodded. Yang, you've put a lot of thought into this. After that, as if intentionally trying to escape the situation, he went off to attend the court assembly. In the court, colleagues offered both congratulations and teasing. Bai Heng could only cup his hands in return, speaking humble words, yet his thoughts drifted away several times. The imperial edict for the marriage had been issued. Based on the birth dates of the two individuals, they were specifically granted permission to marry 3 months later, upon learning that the wedding date was not immediate. Bai Heng's first reaction was actually a sigh of relief. Perhaps he wanted to spend more time preparing for the wedding. After all, when I married Hai Ruo back then, it was in a simple hut, with neighbors and fellow villagers invited to bear witness. There was no phoenix crown or embroidered robe, only a plain red gown that Hai Ruo had personally embroidered. A few wooden tables were put together, set with homemade pickles and steaming coarse noodles, and the guests ate heartily. Although it was a bit shabby, the sincerity at that time was real, the joy in Hai Ruo's eyes was real, and the warmth of the two holding each other close was also real. Thinking of this, Bai Heng shook his head. Forget it, what's past is past. Now that I've agreed to this marriage, I should devote myself to it wholeheartedly. He muttered to himself, as if trying to boost his own morale. By the time he returned to the mansion, dusk was approaching. Steward Li hurried forward to greet him. Master. The princess had a number of people tidy up the storeroom today. Finding it too cramped, she ended up burning a lot of things all at once. Bai Heng's brow furrowed slightly for a moment before smoothing out again. She has her own considerations. Let her be. With that, he headed straight for the study. Before he could even settle into his seat in the study, Steward Li followed him in. his face showing a mix of reluctance and anxiety. "Master, Miss Hai's belongings were also burned." Bai Heng's hand, which was reaching for the scrolls on the table, stiffened slightly. A moment later, he responded indifferently, "I know, you may leave." After Steward Li withdrew, Bai Heng sat alone in his study. He had already stood up at some point and was walking toward the storeroom. Before he even got close, he could smell a pungent, burnt odor. In the open space in front of the storeroom, a raging fire was devouring a pile of miscellaneous items, crackling and popping. Lu Yang stood to the side, directing the servants to keep adding firewood. Bai Heng's gaze fell upon a wooden box she was about to throw into the fire. The familiar carvings sent a shock through his heart. Without a second thought, he darted forward, rushing to snatch it away. Lu Yang was startled by the sudden movement, and her hand loosened, letting the wooden box fall steadily into the flames. Bai Heng instinctively rushed towards the sea of flames. The servants nearby, seeing this, cried out in alarm, "Master, it's dangerous." Lu Yang also snapped back to reality and anxiously shouted, "Brother Heng, come back quickly." Bai Heng seemed not to hear, and in his panic, he finally managed to grasp a corner of the wooden box. When it was rescued, the edges of the wooden box were still smoldering. He didn't mind the heat and quickly used his sleeve to extinguish the flames. Opening the lid, he saw that several parts of the paper inside had been scorched, but fortunately, most of the writing was still clearly legible. His fingertips gently traced the character engraved on it, and he felt a suffocating tightness in his chest. When she was by his side, these subtle expressions of love were like the air, ever present yet often unnoticed. Now that she was gone, these simple strokes of the character felt as heavy as 1,000 pounds, making it hard for him to breathe. He remained dazed for a long while before finally snapping back to reality. "This can't be burned. She probably forgot to take it with her. Hairuo has always treasured these old papers, saying they are her unique memories, incredibly precious. She must have forgotten to take them." Lu Yang said coquettishly, "Brother Heng, it's just an old box, dirty and taking up space. If it's burned, then it's burned. Why make such a fuss?" Bai Heng seemed not to hear. Lu Yang grew even more upset. "Brother Heng, you're so protective of this old thing today. Could it be that you're still thinking of Hairuo? I'm the one who's going to marry you." Only then did he look up. "From now on, don't touch Hairuo's things again." Lu Yang snorted coldly. "What else is there? Everything has been burned." Upon hearing this, Bai Heng was somewhat stunned. Everything was burned. "Well, that saves us the trouble of figuring out where to place them. It's just that this box, he must return it to Hairuo." Lu Yang was furious. "I knew you still had feelings for her. What am I to you then?" Bai Heng pondered for a moment before speaking slowly. "Princess, the wedding will proceed as scheduled. However, this box holds some memories from my youth, unrelated to romantic feelings. I hope you can understand." Lu Yang, hearing him address her as princess, felt a faint unease in her heart and dared not press further. Returning to the study, Bai Heng tightly hugged the box, slowly crouched down by the wall, and murmured to himself, "Aruo, look at me. I almost lost the precious box you cherished." 13. Lu Yang was somewhat dissatisfied with Bai Heng's recent state of frequent absent-mindedness. She always felt that he was a bit different from before. Fortunately, they were about to get married, so she wouldn't have to waste the rest of her life. After 2 months of effort, the Bai residence had been completely renovated from the main hall to the bedrooms. Lu Yang had fully embraced her role as the matriarch of the Bai family. The servants all followed her instructions with extreme caution. There were less than 3 days left until the wedding. Bai Heng had just returned to the estate after finishing his official duties. As soon as he stepped into the backyard, he heard the sound of fabric tearing. As I approached, I saw Lu Yang holding a pair of scissors, freely cutting into a red dress. "Brother Heng, you're back. This old wedding dress is so outdated, and it's just taking up space. But I think the fabric is quite nice. If I cut it up, it can be used as the hem of my new skirt. It'll definitely look good." Bai Heng's expression stiffened slightly, a sharp pain piercing his heart. Wait, that was the wedding dress that Hairuo had personally embroidered stitch by stitch back in the day. Lu Yang didn't stop, pursing her lips and saying, "We're about to get married soon, so of course we should use new things. What's there to be reluctant about with this old stuff? Bai-hung watched as she made a cut with the scissors, severing the collar embroidered with mandarin ducks, and suddenly felt a sharp, throbbing pain in her heart. He opened his mouth, about to say something, when a servant came to report from outside the door, "Master, the people sent to Qi County have returned." Bai-hung didn't bother with formalities and hurriedly strode to the door. A moment later, the servant entered the study, covered in dust from his journey. He still carried the weariness of travel on his brow. "Master, I searched all over Qi County, checked every place where Miss Hai might have stayed, relatives' homes, old acquaintances' places, but truly, I couldn't find her." Bai-hung frowned. "I only asked you to deliver some necessities to her. How could you fail at such a simple task? Did you check by her parents' graves?" "I did. The villagers nearby said Miss Hai never returned to pay her respects at the graves." Bai-hung was taken aback, and a sudden sense of foreboding stirred within him. "Is she, Hai Ruo, unhappy? So she's hiding?" "No, she's not someone who would act so inappropriately. She has always been a well-behaved and capable homemaker. She is extremely filial to her parents-in-law and gets along harmoniously with the neighbors." He believed that even if he said he wanted to take a few concubines, she would arrange everything properly for him without a hint of complaint. She is just such a gentle and magnanimous woman. Her heart and mind are completely filled with thoughts of this family and him, her husband. As he was pondering, Liu Yang burst in like a gust of wind. "Brother Heng, look at this wedding dress made by the Jiangnan tailor. It just arrived. Do you think it looks good?" Bai-hung merely glanced at it briefly and did not respond. Liu Yang finally noticed his unusual behavior and asked with a furrowed brow, "Brother Heng, what's wrong? Are you too tired?" Bai-hung took a deep breath and shook his head. "It's nothing. I'm just a bit tired from handling official duties." Liu Yang was half convinced and didn't ask further. She began to excitedly discuss the preparations for the grand wedding, from the dishes at the banquet to the guest list. Every detail was meticulously handled. Bai-hung listened half-heartedly, his thoughts already drifting far away. He wondered, if Hai Ruo were to find out that he had married someone else, would she resent him for his fickleness? But hadn't Hai Ruo already known that he was going to marry Liu Yang? Since learning that Hai Ruo could not be found, Bai-hung sent 2 more teams to search for her in places where she might be found. All efforts were in vain. He became increasingly silent and withdrawn. Suddenly, he realized that all of Hai Ruo's belongings seemed to have been completely cleared away, as if she had never existed in this mansion. The wedding date was approaching, yet Bai-hung seemed somewhat stubborn. He summoned Steward Li. "Hai Ruo is the most obedient one. Perhaps she has already returned to the capital. But she hasn't come to the estate because I told her not to come rashly. Has she been to see you?" Steward Li wiped the sweat from his brow. "Sir, Miss Hai truly hasn't come to see me." Bai-hung let out an "oh," then, thinking of something else, "She has always been particular about etiquette. If she comes to offer congratulations tomorrow, make sure to tell the servants not to stop her. I will explain it to Yanga. Yes, and also, go and decorate the west wing according to the previous layout of the east wing, so she can stay there temporarily when she returns. But, sir, the princess has converted the west wing into a special guest reception area and had it renovated. She said she plans to have her aunt stay there for a while someday." Bai-hung slammed the teacup down onto the table with a thud. "She's certainly taking thorough care of everything in this household now. I was only thinking of leaving a familiar place for Aruo. If she comes back after all this time away and finds everything changed, how heartbroken she would be." Steward Li had never seen the master of the house so furious and hurriedly said, "I'll go take care of it right away." Outside the window, a gentle breeze rustled the curtains, carrying in a faint, elusive chill. Bai-hung got up and closed the window. As she turned back, she caught a glimpse of the books she often flipped through, placed in the corner of the study. Without thinking, he stepped forward, picked one up, and read a few pages. Finding it rather dull, unexpectedly, as he flipped further, he discovered it was Hai Ruo's journal. The elegant handwriting still seems to carry warmth. Each entry is filled with her hopes for this family. May mother-in-law enjoy good health, praying for Bai-hung's smooth career advancement. Page by page, Bai-hung's heart tightened more and more. In the end, His hand suddenly trembled, and the pages nearly slipped from his grasp. He cried out in panic, "Someone, go find Butler Lee, 14. Bai-hung knocked over the teacup in front of him. The scalding tea splashed onto his sleeve, but he didn't even notice. "Won't you tell me the truth? Did Aruo have a miscarriage? Why did you lie to me those days, saying she had caught a cold?" In the journal, she only wrote one sentence, "Hung Lang, I have lost our child. For the rest of our lives, let us each take care of ourselves." He was the one who shared her pillow, yet he knew nothing. Steward Lee knelt and kowtowed. "It was Miss Hai who forbade me from speaking. She said it would affect your relationship with the new madam, so I didn't." The lady was originally overjoyed and eager to share the good news with you, but when she saw the divorce letter you had hidden in the drawer, she became too agitated, accidentally fell, and lost the child just like that. In that instant, Bai-hung felt as if struck by lightning, the blood in his entire body seeming to freeze. No, it wasn't like that. The divorce letter in the drawer was written when they had just married, at a time when he had nothing and didn't want to hold Hai-ruo back. It was just that Hai-ruo never gave up on him, always smiling and comforting him, saying that the future would surely get better. This made him even more reluctant to let go of her hand. Years passed, and he himself had forgotten that he had written this letter of divorce. The new letter of divorce was written on the day she left, writing about the regrets he had towards her over the years, hoping she would forgive him for not being able to stay with her until old age. No, whether old or new. He wrote them all. He had already given up on her. Thousands of words choked in the throat, turning into silent tears that streamed down. Hai-ruo's desperate and helpless face kept appearing before his eyes. At that time, his mind was completely preoccupied with Liu Yang's trip to the capital. Even when she had been bedridden for several days, claiming it was just a cold, he foolishly believed her. With trembling hands, he continued to flip through the diary. The handwriting on the following pages becomes increasingly chaotic, revealing the owner's emotional breakdown at the time. A few lines of text are even blurred by ink, as if dampened by tears. Bai-hung's tears flowed uncontrollably, dripping onto the pages and spreading into a mottled stain. Outside, the sky gradually darkened as dark clouds gathered. Bai-hung hugged the books in his arms tightly and slumped to the ground. He seemed to be starting to sort out his thoughts. Back then, he was able to pull himself together because Hai-ruo encouraged him, saying, "Only by pursuing an official career will you have the ability to win back your woman." He deeply remembered Hai-ruo's words, studying day and night, rising step by step from a humble scholar to the imperial court, but in reality, he no longer had any romantic feelings for Liu Yang. All that remained was the unresolved obsession from his youth. Now that the obsession had come true, he found it utterly meaningless. "My heart is filled with guilt and longing for another woman." Upon hearing that Bai-hung had secluded himself indoors, Liu Yang came specifically to visit. Originally, with the wedding scheduled for tomorrow, they should have avoided each other tonight, but she felt uneasy in her heart. Afraid that something might go wrong and affect her marriage into the Bai family, she could no longer care about so much. Seeing Bai-hung's despondent state, she gritted her teeth and helped him to the bedside. Bai-hung seemed not to see her, allowing himself to be manipulated like a walking corpse, until the woman began to undress and leaned into his embrace. "Brother Hung, we are to be married tomorrow. Do not waste this beautiful night." Only then did Bai-hung snap back to reality. Turning aside to avoid her, his voice carried a sense of detachment. "Princess, please show some restraint. Once we are married tomorrow, all the courtesies due between husband and wife will naturally be observed." Liu Yang's face stiffened, a mix of shame and anger surging within her. "Brother Hung, if you still care so much about Hai-ruo, don't blame me for being ruthless. Don't forget, Hai-ruo's appearance resembles the princess even more. If I suggest to the emperor that Hai-ruo be sent for a political marriage, she will surely die." Bai-hung was shocked and widened his eyes to look at Liu Yang, his face full of disbelief. "I have already agreed to marry you and made sure she no longer appears before you. Why must you push so hard and drive her to her death? Aruo has never wronged you. She even considered going in your place for the marriage alliance back then, yet you cannot tolerate her. How have you become so ruthless and heartless?" Liu Yang slightly raised her chin, her eyes filled with disdain. You promised me. Stop deceiving yourself. You're just using this excuse to rekindle our past relationship while feeling justified in abandoning your lawful wife. Liu Yang laid bare Bai Heng's intentions with perfect clarity. Bai Heng was unwilling to admit it. He staggered a step. Liu Yang, if you dare to act recklessly, I will not let you off even if it costs me my life. Bai Heng gritted his teeth and spoke word by word. Liu Yang was startled by his imposing manner, but refused to admit defeat. Then let's wait and see whether you can protect her or I can achieve my goal. With that, she flicked her sleeve and turned away. Bai Heng felt nothing but sorrow in his heart. While hesitating, his colleague Li Huan hurried over with an anxious expression. Brother Bai, there's an urgent matter in the palace requiring immediate summons. Come with me to the palace quickly. Bai Heng had no time to think further and could only rise to follow Li Huan. Along the way, Li Huan noticed Bai Heng seemed distracted and couldn't help but ask, Brother Bai, you're getting married tomorrow. Normally, people should be in high spirits when happy occasions come. So why do you look increasingly haggard? It must be due to poor sleep, he replied evasively. Don't worry about someone else. That day when we drank freely together, you called out a ruo many times while drunk, and I thought you couldn't let go. Bai Heng remained silent. Did you know that back then, Hai Ruo actually asked me to help find Liu Yang? When did this happen? What? She didn't tell you? Li Huan was somewhat surprised. Back when Liu Yang was selected to enter the palace, she went to see Liu Yang, hoping she could arrange things inside the palace. Perhaps she could exchange places and enter the palace herself, taking Liu Yang's place for the marriage alliance. But Liu Yang was unwilling to give up her position as the princess and even humiliated Hai Ruo. She made Hai Ruo kneel on the ground and kowtow until her head was bleeding, only to dismiss her with a single get out. It was heartbreaking to watch. Bai Heng's footsteps faltered. In an instant, the image flashed through his mind of the day Hai Ruo returned, her forehead bruised and bleeding, yet forcing a smile as she claimed she had fallen. His reason was nearly consumed by rage. Why did you only tell me now? Li Huan sighed. You were unable to pull yourself together at the time, and Hai Ruo asked me to keep it quiet for a while, wanting to give you motivation to win back Hai Yon. That's why Who would have thought that this secret would be kept for so many years? Brother Bai, let's set this matter aside for now. The urgent priority is to enter the palace and deal with the situation. Bai Heng forcibly suppressed the sorrow in his heart, nodded, and quickened his pace. Entering the palace, he wants to enter the palace to apologize to the emperor. He will not marry Liu Yang. He wants to go find his Aruo and tell her that she is the one he loves, the only one. She must be waiting somewhere for him to bring her back. 15. Bai Heng was extremely anxious. His steps hurried, the hem of his robe fluttering in the wind, when he arrived in front of the imperial study. He straightened his clothes slightly before stepping in steadily. The emperor was flipping through memorials. Seeing him enter, the emperor looked up and gazed at him for a moment before saying, Minister Bai, do you know why we have summoned you? Bai Heng lifted his robe and knelt to the ground, bowing his head in salute. Your servant has heard that it is related to the situation at the border. The Crown Prince of Northern Qi heard that there is an embroiderer in the Zhenbei army whose appearance closely resembles that of our dynasty's princess, and thus he developed a desire to provoke, openly declaring that he intends to seize this person and take her back to Northern Qi. The emperor paused for a moment and looked at Bai Heng again. I had heard earlier that your wife resembles the princess, but I had long forgotten. Could it be that the embroiderer is indeed your former wife? Hai Ruo, Bai Heng was slightly startled. Your Majesty, could this be a coincidence? The portrait sent by the border painter, take a look for yourself. The eunuch presented the portrait. With just one glance, Bai Heng froze completely. The emperor took in Bai Heng's reaction with a sweeping gaze. It seems this is no coincidence. Minister Bai, why don't you explain to me what she was doing in such a place? Bai Heng snapped back to reality and quickly prostrated himself. Kowtowing, Your Majesty, please forgive my foolishness. I have been indecisive in matters of the heart, which created a rift with Hai Ruo. It was only today that I learned she is in grave danger at the border. The emperor was furious. As an official of the court, You cannot even manage your own household affairs. Now, because of this domestic turmoil, you have nearly brought great disaster upon my empire. The Crown Prince of Northern Qi has always been arrogant and domineering. Seizing this pretext, he is unlikely to let the matter rest easily, and the common people at the border will suffer once again. Bai Heng kowtowed repeatedly, and a red swelling quickly appeared on his forehead. I beseech your majesty to grant me permission to depart for the border at once. I will spare no effort to bring Hai Ruo back safely and will never give Northern Qi any pretext to cause trouble. On the day Bai Heng left the residence, Lu Yang's tears fell like broken strings of pearls as she cried out, I won't accept this. I have given you my whole heart. How can you be so cruel? With the wedding so near, how do you expect me to face this? Bai Heng sat tall and straight on his majestic horse, looking coldly at the woman before him. Since you pursue your wealth and status, do not look back. This time, I am heading to the border to find her. From now on, you and I have nothing to do with each other. Eager to see her as soon as possible, he was burning with impatience, traveling day and night. 16. After a long and arduous journey, he finally arrived at the frontier. Bai Heng had grown much thinner, clutching the carved wooden box protectively in his arms. At that moment, his heart was filled only with thoughts of Aruo. He didn't care about appearances and went straight to the military camp without bothering to tidy himself up. There was no one among the embroiderers who resembled Hairuo at all. He only found out after much effort that the imperial court had already received the latest news. The reason the Northern Qi Crown Prince sent Lu Yang back was because she couldn't bear the loneliness and had an affair with a subordinate. The Crown Prince kept her child and sent Lu Yang back to act as a spy. After the border intelligence was intercepted by Northern Qi spies, Lu Yang voluntarily offered a plan, deliberately presenting Hai Ruo's portrait to create the impression that the Northern Qi Crown Prince was causing trouble at the frontier due to dissatisfaction with the marriage alliance. This would make the border populace resent the great Zhao ruler for being unwilling to part with the princess. If the great Zhao emperor proactively initiated war, then Northern Qi could justifiably march its troops southward. Upon hearing this news, Bai Heng felt a wave of dizziness before his eyes. He never would have thought that the woman he had once held some affection for would turn out to be such a disloyal and unrighteous person, nearly harming Aruo. Lu Yang, how dare you do this? Although Hairuo was not serving as an embroiderer in the army, but Bai Heng had a premonition. He felt that Hairuo was very close to him, very close. He stayed behind to inquire about Hairuo's whereabouts, not letting go of any clue, but after lingering outside the Great Wall for many days, there was still no news at all. That feeling of oppression and despair began to spread within his heart. In the deserted corner, his eyes reddened several times. The sour and bitter sensation rushed straight to his nose, yet he could only force himself to hold back the tears. He feared that once he started crying, he would no longer have the strength to continue searching. Aruo, where are you? His voice was swept away by the howling wind, quickly dissipating into the vast expanse of heaven and earth. Not a single response was received. Thinking that perhaps she had returned to the capital to look for him, a glimmer of hope ignited in his heart. Not daring to delay for a moment, he hurried back without stopping. Months had passed in the round trip. Over these past few months, he endured the hardships of the elements, growing increasingly gaunt and haggard, yet he always held on to the hope that upon his return to the capital, he would see that familiar, graceful figure in the familiar streets and alleys. That way, everything would still be in time. Upon returning to the capital, he learned that Lu Yang had been thrown into prison and was to be executed in a few days. Bai Heng went to visit the prison. As soon as they met, he grabbed her by the collar and lifted her up violently. Lu Yang turned deathly pale with fear. Brother Heng, I had no choice either. The Northern Qi Crown Prince threatened my child. Bai Heng's eyes were full of contempt. For your own selfish desires, you would stop at nothing. How dare you still have the nerve to beg for mercy? Lu Yang wept bitterly. Brother Heng, you've changed. No matter what happened before, you would always stand by my side. Wasn't it because you were too weak to protect me that I was forced to marry into Northern Qi? I was so lonely all by myself, so I had no choice. Can you really blame me for that? Enough. Don't think I don't know. A Ruo came to see you. It was you couldn't bear to give up your title as princess. Bai Heng suddenly released his grip, and Liu Yang collapsed to the ground. Due to his association with Liu Yang, Bai Heng was dismissed from his official post, but he made every effort to preserve the Bai residence, because it was Hai Ruo's home. He feared that if she returned and found the place occupied by others, she would not be able to find him. Memories of his time with Hai Ruo flashed through his mind one by one. He guarded the house, waiting, hoping, unable to believe that he had already lost his Aruo. 17, extra female. I picked up a wounded soldier from the northern Qi, afraid of being discovered by the Dazhao army. I had no choice but to hide in the remote mountains. That day, I had originally intended to go to the military camp to seek work as an embroiderer. Mending the soldiers' torn battle robes would be my small contribution to defending the border. Who would have thought the northern Qi army would suddenly raid the camp? With shouts of killing and the sound of horses' hooves everywhere, arrows fell like rain, and I panicked, fleeing without a clear path. It was that northern Qi soldier who took an arrow for me. Only later did I discover that he had already been struck by 2 blades before the arrow hit him. I quickly dragged him into the nearby mountains, using branches and vines to create a simple cover. I had never seen such a brutal fight before, and I was trembling all over with fear. The soldier, though weak, softly reassured me, "Don't be afraid. If we're discovered, just kill me and you'll be able to escape." He finished speaking and shoved the dagger into my hand. I was still so scared, but I had to calm down. Saving a soldier from northern Qi was a major taboo in Dazhao's territory. But I had to save him. After all, he took an arrow for me. As the crowd thinned, I quickly found a safe cave to settle him in, and used the skills I had taught myself from medical books to treat his wounds. I told him, "Don't give up. I'll find the right moment to hand you over to the northern Qi people so they can take you back." He was barely breathing, still telling me not to worry about him, lest I be devoured by wild beasts. After enduring for several days, he finally regained full consciousness. That day, I happened to hear that northern Qi and Dazhao were going to exchange hostages, and I cheerfully said, "You're finally awake, hurry up. You have a chance to return to northern Qi." He avoided my gaze and mumbled, "I've troubled you, miss. I've caused you a lot of inconvenience. I cannot leave until I have repaid your great kindness." Seeing his shy demeanor, as if he had never interacted with a woman before, I couldn't help but smile. "You saved me first, and then I saved you. How could there be so much kindness to repay?" he stammered in reply. I don't wish to be indebted to you, miss." He insisted on staying, and I had no solution. After all, his legs are his own. Seeing that he could take care of himself, I planned to go to the camp as scheduled to find work as an embroiderer, but he insisted on following me. Fearing that trouble might arise, we each took a step back. Finally, he built 2 wooden cabins and a small courtyard in the forest. And that's how we settled down. I got some vegetable seeds and started growing vegetables, while he took charge of hunting. Every time he placed the game on the ground, he would smile and say to me, "Girl, we have meat to eat tonight." When I noticed his boots were worn out, I spent several days embroidering a new pair for him. He held it as if it were a rare treasure. "Miss, your skill is truly unparalleled. I am unworthy of such craftsmanship." That day, he went to the market to buy supplies and saw someone holding a portrait of me, searching for me. When he returned, he pulled me aside with a grave expression and said, "Miss, someone is looking for you. Remember, no matter what happens, just say that you were coerced by me." My panicked heart finally settled down. At that moment, I suddenly felt that I didn't want to leave him. That feeling might not be love, but rather a safe harbor found in this turbulent world. An instinct to cling tightly together after weathering the storms. I don't know how many years have passed. In the end, I married him under the vast desert sky, and we even had a child together. Hearing the baby's first cry, he rushed into the room, his eyes brimming with tears as he grasped my hand. "Eru, you've worked hard. From now on, I will protect you and our child for the rest of our lives." I looked at him, tears in my eyes, and nodded with a smile. Even though I had been hurt so deeply by love before, this man, with his responsibility and tenderness, gradually filled the void in my heart. I am fortunate, extra. The Bai mansion had been in decline for years, and Bai Heng often found himself lost in memories of the past. He would hazily recall the first time he met Hairuo, when he was merely a seemingly prosperous but impoverished scholar, struggling to make ends meet, yet he deceived that young girl into staying by his side for Liu Yang. He treated her well only so that she would willingly repay his kindness in the future. He didn't realize that he had long fallen in love with her. Thinking back to the time when he was at his lowest, she had accompanied him without any complaints or regrets, mending his worn-out clothes and taking care of his sick mother. She scrimped and saved, squeezing out every last coin to help him by writing materials, encouraging him to pursue scholarly honors. Ruo. If only I had held on to you tightly back then, how wonderful it would have been, Bai Heng muttered to himself, his voice hoarse as if sanded by sandpaper. Tears often welled up in his sunken eye sockets. He hated his own foolishness, hated his own greed. I lost the most precious treasure in this world with my own hands. Now, plagued by illness, he still drags his broken body, waiting day after day, waiting for her to come back and take a look. Everyone around him advises him to give up, saying that Hairuo might have already passed away, or perhaps she has already found her own place. In short, she has drifted to a foreign land, making it difficult to find any trace. He stubbornly shook his head. No, Aruo must still be here. She's waiting for me somewhere. Once I get a little better, I'll go find her. Bai Heng's condition gradually worsened. That day, a friend came to visit him and mentioned the affairs of northern Qi. The border was once again becoming unstable. The second prince of northern Qi, who was persecuted by the crown prince, returned with his wife and child to ascend the throne after disappearing for several years. He loved peace, so he resolutely recalled the army to recuperate and rebuild. He even abolished the imperial harem for the wife who had stood by him through hardships. He could be considered a man of deep devotion. However, this portrait of the new emperor and empress of northern Qi seems a bit strange. This woman. In the final moments of her life, Bai Heng used her last ounce of strength, gazing at the portrait and murmuring softly, Aruo. As her eyes closed, a single murky tear slid from the corner of her eye. With a lifetime of regret and longing, she remained frozen in this forgotten mansion.